In today's video, I'm going to be painting up a Tiefling Sorcerer from the Dungeons & Dragons WizKids range. Okay, so what we're going to be doing with this miniature is we're just going to be separating the magical effect from the actual miniature itself so we can get in to all those areas and paint it. And to do this, you can either use some sprue cutters or an X-Acto knife like I have here, and we can just attach it from the base in two key points here, just where the staff is right here to cause minimal damage, and at the base itself as well. So we can get access to every area and paint without having to worry about any paint getting from each side of it. Okay, so now we have the magical effect separated from the actual miniature itself. We can now start with painting. And to start off, we're going to use some royal purple here, just mixed in with just a tiny drop of black, just to darken that royal purple down a little bit, because I want a nice dark purple coat rather than a very bright, vibrant purple coat. So what we want to do here is just paint the areas that we can see where the coat is. And the good thing, of course, about these miniatures from WizKids is they're already pre-primed, so we don't have to worry about that step either. So we can just get straight onto painting. And you're going to probably need two thin coats here to really get everywhere on the entire the miniature, because it has a lot of little creases and wrinkles and folds. So you want to make sure you get into all those areas as well. So just giving it a nice overall coverage, and then we'll move on to the next step. Okay, so now we've painted the coat up. What we're going to be doing now is using some dragon red, and we're going to be using the dragon red, of course, to be painting our tiefling skin, because I want a nice bright red strong tiefling. Since the last one I painted up had more of a greyish black sort of skin tone, and tieflings have a wide variety of colors, so I think a nice bright strong red, really tiefling devil looking one will be very cool with this color scheme that we're going for here. And it's going to really pop out against that nice dark purple coat that we've already got on here as well. So just paying attention to the areas where we want to be placing that red on, which is of course the areas of the skin that would be on an ordinary human miniature. Okay, now this is one of those moments where I change my mind slightly on what we're going to do here, and instead of leaving the sleeves and painting them up a different color, I'm actually just going to be painting them up in the purple as well, because I wasn't quite sure if I wanted to go with different colors on the sleeves, especially since he has these metal rings and stuffs on there, but I'm just going to go with straight royal purple for the whole coat. Okay, so now the whole coat is done in the nice royal purple. We're going to come in now with some flat yellow, and we're going to be using flat yellow to be painting in our tiefling's eyes, because I want them to have some nice bright vibrant eyes that are really going to stick out, just be a little bit different as well, just from the usual white eyes that I do as well. So of course what we're going to be doing here is getting in with a very fine brush, putting a little bit of paint just on the tip and just dabbing it into the areas where the eye sockets are. Now since it is yellow and it's such a bright color, you may need to put it on in just a couple of little steps, and then of course don't forget to just tidy up back around so you just have the paint in the eye socket area as well. Okay, so now we've got those eyes nice and painted in. We're going to come in now of course with some black, and what we're going to be doing is we're going to be placing that black onto just the very point of a nice fine needle here that I have, and I've just used a drawing pin to do this, and we want to dot in those eyes. It's the perfect thing for getting into those miniatures who have really small eyes, since I'm no good at picking them out with an ordinary standard brush or even a fine tip brush. I'm a little wobbly with my hands, and I think the pin does a good job at getting in those eyes. Okay, so now still using the black from painting in those eyes, we're going to be using the black again to be painting in our tieflings here. So he's got some nice hair sculpted into him, as well as his hair flows from top of his head all the way down to his neck, and it flows in underneath the collar. So don't forget to try squeeze in there with your brush. This is a good point. We haven't painted up too much here, so we can really get in there with the black and really show in the hairline that he has in there as well. So giving it a nice overall coverage and just trying to avoid the areas we've already painted. Okay, now with our Tiefling Sorcerer's hair all painted up, we're going to come in now with some grimoire purple. And we'll be using grimoire purple, sorry, a little bit tricky for me to say, to be painting up the top part of the coat, which sort of has like a mantle or like armor sort of quality here that includes his collar and just the shoulder pieces of the cloak. So I'm going to be doing this in a lighter purple to make it stand out a little bit there. It's going to really pop up nicely against that dark royal purple we've got on here, and add in just another interesting visual element into the miniature as well. Okay, now we have the top of the coat painted in. What we're going to be doing now is coming in with some stonewall grey. I'm going to be using stonewall grey to be painting his, basically his underclothes here, because he's got a little bit of armor and he has a bit of cloth here and sort of like a undercoat on there. So we want to be painting in that, and it's just a little, has some nice little diamond shapes just on the side of his main armor piece there as well. We want to get with the stonewall grey, giving it just a nice covering. I know it's going to be quite hard to see here. The stonewall grey is very similar to the grey primer on here, but I tell you, once we have it all finished painted up, you'll notice it then. Okay, now we have his undercoat painted up. We're going to come in now with some vallejo kahkhi, and we're going to be using that to be painting our Tiefling Sorcerer's pants. So when you're doing this, don't forget to try, if you can, reach into the back and on the underside of the model there to really paint the pants all the way up. I know it's going to be a little bit tricky since he's got the cape flowing everywhere in that, but just try your best getting the angle you can to paint in those pants properly. Okay, so now we have our Tiefling's pants painted up. We're going to come in now with some Vallejo charred brown, and we're going to be using the charred brown to be painting up our Tiefling Sorcerer's boots. So we want to go with a nice dark brown colour here, which is really going to make his boots stick out on the miniature. So just giving them a nice overall paint job. Now remember to come back with a second coat if you need to, and it's going to be a little bit tricky to get at that one in the back, but just keep maneuvering the miniature around and you'll be able to get to it easy enough. Okay, so now what we're going to be doing is we're going to come in now with some Vallejo chainmail silver, and we're going to be using this to be painting up our chest piece that our Tiefling Sorcerer has here, right here in the middle of his chest. You can see, it's quite hard to spot it out from the stonewall grey we just put on just before, but we also want to make sure that we're going to be painting up his armbands. He has some nice metal armbands on there as well, so we're going to be painting those up too. And the reason why I'm going with a chain, more of a metal sort of chest plate rather than a leather one, is I think he's going to be a nice battle-hardened sort of sorcerer, be one that's not so much in the back, more up there in the front, so he's going to be a little bit more heavily armored. So that's why I'm going with the metal rather than the leather. Okay, so now we have his armor painted up. What we'll be doing now is coming in with some leather brown. I'm going to be using the leather brown to just be painting up his leather belt that he has on. So just here, he has a small leather belt, so we're coming in with a nice thin brush to just paint that up. Okay, so now we have all that painted up. We're going to come in now with some basalt grey. And we'll be using the basalt grey to be painting up this nice big stone that our Tiefling Sorcerer is standing on, sorry. And we want to be painting that up nice and all over. Now you might need two coats to paint there because it does actually have some texture and stuff in there, so you want to make sure you get around that, and of course avoiding painting up those feet. Okay, so now I'm going to be doing one of my decisions again, where I'm going to be changing the miniature up on the fly as I'm painting it, and I'm going to be using rough iron to be painting over the chest piece that you can see here on the miniature, because I felt that the chainmail silver was just blending in way too much with that stonewall grey, and I want to give him that more evil sort of powerful sorcerer feel. So I think the rough iron is going to show that a bit better off having that nice dark iron coloured armour, as well as our Tiefling Sorcerer's staff and his belt buckle there. We want to be painting up in this rough iron. So remember, these paints that I'm using are just a guideline, and even me, myself, I change what I'm doing on them as I'm painting them up, deciding what looks good and what doesn't. And of course, don't forget to just paint up the other part of the staff. Okay, so now what we're going to be doing is we're going to come in with some black, and we'll be using the black to be painting up the belt that holds our Tiefling Sorcerer's cloak together here. You can just see it just carved in here, so we want to make sure that we give it a nice quick paint job with the black so we can definitely see it on the miniature and it doesn't blend in. Okay, so once we have that belt painted up, we're going to come in now with some castle grey, and we're going to be using castle grey to just be dry brushing over our base here to give it some more definition. So again, don't forget to avoid dry brushing the feet if you can. If you do, don't forget we're in the good stages where we can just come back and paint over. And once we've dry brushed over, we're going to come in with another dry brush this time with uniform grey, and dry brushing over the same areas. So again, just avoiding those feet. And now we're going to dry brush one more time with one more colour, ash grey being our lightest grey, and just dry brushing over again. So we've got all those nice grey colours there, giving us different variations on this nice piece of stone that he's standing on. Okay, now we have all that base nicely painted up. We're going to come in now with some purple tone from Army Painter, and we're going to be using the purple tone to be giving a wash over the entirety of our cloak here, and as well as the lighter purple we have on the top of the cloak. We're also going to be doing that with our purple tone in there to give it a nice richer purple colour. Okay, so now once that purple tone's all dry, we're going to come in now with some agrax earthshade, and we're going to be using agrax earthshade to be painting over everywhere that, I should say washing over rather than painting over, washing over everywhere, basically the bottom half of the miniature, but we're going to be focusing on the pants, the boots, the stone he's standing on, as well as his underclothes as well on his leather belt. We'll be making sure we get that with the agrax earthshade. Now I have thinned it down just a little bit with just a touch of water, just because I don't want it too intense, so don't forget to do that as well if you want. Okay, now once that agrax earthshade is dry, we're going to come in now with some red tone. And of course for the red tone, we're going to be washing it over all of our tiefling skin that you can see here. And just being a little bit careful to try and avoid the eyes. Now I know some will inevitably get in there, but it's okay to just wick it back up with your brush. It's a nice easy way to get rid of the paint, especially in these stages where we've just applied it. It's the best time to apply to get rid of washes. So making sure we give a nice even coverage everywhere over the red with that. Okay, so now once our red wash is completely dry, we're going to come in now with some nuln oil. And you know me, I love nuln oil over anything metallic. I just love the effect it gives off. So of course I'm just placing this over our rough iron and our chainmail metal that we have here. So everywhere that we have the metallic paints is where we want to place this nuln oil, just giving it that nice effect that I really enjoy. Okay, so once all our washes are completely dry, we're going to come back in with some dragon red now, and we'll be using the dragon red to just be giving highlights, of course, where the sun would naturally hit on our model here. So like places like the top of the horns, the tips of the fingers, the back of the hand, things where the light is naturally hitting, as well as on the tail. So we've got that nice highlight there, and it's going to be, it may be a little bit harder to see now, but once it dries, it'll be a lot more effective. And now once we've highlighted that skin, we're going to come back in now with our grimoire purple, set it right this time, and we're going to come back and highlight the edges here of our miniature. Just trying to get the paint on here. Now I'll come in with a little bit thinner brush than I usually use, or I should say probably a lot thinner actually, than what I use to place the base coat on, since this bit has some really hard edges. So I thought using a thinner brush is going to make it a lot easier to get those edges. And he has a little bit of nice work on the back of his cloak here, so I want to make sure I get that, and with a thin brush I'm going to be able to pick that out a lot easier. Okay, so once we've finished that, what we're going to be doing is we're going to come back in now with our royal purple. Now we're just going to be using straight royal purple this time. We're not going to be mixing it with any black, because I want these highlights to stick out really well, and it's going to be our main focal point of the miniature since he has so much of this purple off. So I wanted to push those highlights a lot, so that's why I'm just using the royal purple and not adding any black into it, because it'll just now blend back in with everything else, and we don't want that. So that's why I've gone with the royal purple, since it is such a light color, is why we darkened it down with the black beforehand. So just using the royal purple now, this time you can see the highlights really stick out, and it's going to look really effective from a distance on the table. So just picking out all those areas of high points that you can see on the miniature. Okay, so now with all that painted up, we're moving on to our magic effect here, and we're going to be using Talassar Blue, which is a contrast paint for this. And contrast paints are amazing at painting up these clear parts of the miniatures, especially with these wizkids models that I've been painting up lately. I found that contrast paint seems to be the perfect thing for doing the magical effects and stuff like that, because when you apply them over the clear plastic, you can actually still see through them really well as them still having an amazing amount of color on here. So they're just a great tool and an easy way to speed up these processes. So this talassar blue is going to really stick out and look quite nice once it's all dried up. And with that, all you'll need to do is you'll need to attach the magical effect back to our Tiefling Sorcerer here, as you can see from just the points where we cut it from before. Now I'm also going to be applying a scenic base to the miniature because I want a nice awesome effect, so I'm going to be using a variety of texture, paste, and grass tufts and static grass and stuff like that to give it a cool base, because I think he needs an awesome base to go with that powerful magic he's shooting off. So can't wait for you guys to see that. And with that, we have finished completing our miniature from the Dungeons & Dragons WizKids range, our Tiefling Sorcerer. And you can see with just some awesome bits of highlighting and having that contrast paint to show off the true potential of our clear plastic, we've come out with a really awesome miniature that I think is going to look really impressive on the table, as well as be a cool eye catcher with just some simple paint jobs and highlights and having all those types of things to really make a miniature stand out. So I hope this has been useful for you, whether you guys want to follow along or you just enjoy watching me paint up some cool miniatures. So I'd like to thank you all for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.